on the call. Today we're going to be looking at pre-screening and IWDS 2.0. So before I get into showing you the actual tool, because we have lots of folks on today, I want to make sure to take time to walk through what is UAT, user acceptance testing, and what are the expectations from our testers, and get everybody on the same page about that. And then I'm going to give you guys a little overview of the pre-screening. Um, so as we are doing user acceptance testing, there's a couple of things we would like everybody to remember, that we do have our log on set up for UAT. So we're going to have you guys all log in. After I go through everything today, we'll have some time to make sure everybody can get logged in. And Lynette is going to set aside some time this afternoon in case anybody has any issues logging in. We will work on troubleshooting that with you all. IWDS 2.0 uses the secure Okta login. It's the state single sign-on. And for folks who aren't state users, we have the ability to set up and create those Okta accounts for you so you can log in using Okta. Several of you have done that in previous sessions, but I know we have a lot of new folks and additional testers on today. So we'll make sure to get everybody set up and have staff here to support that. We do ask, because this is a testing environment, that we minimize any PII into the system. So as you guys are testing things, we always encourage that you test like with real use cases. So looking at some of the real customers you're serving, but we do ask that you mix up their PII. So don't use their real name, change up date of birth, don't use like their name, address, and social security number and stuff in the system. We're not even at a point where we're collecting social security number, but as we move through UAT in any area, we don't want to put PII into there. And as we're going through this, as you guys are testing things, today we're going to be focusing solely on pre-screening. I'm going to walk through how to access it and complete the pre-screening. We ask that you get your testing done by December 16th at noon. We have a link to the testing environment in the UAT guide that you guys can use. We'll also send that out via email when we send out all of these resources to you after today's session, so that you can access the UAT environment while you'll be conducting your training. We also have a UAT notebook set up where you will report your issues. So as you're going through testing, you will use this notebook here to identify any issues, bugs, or enhancement requests that you identify during the testing. I'm going to take a look at this after I go over a few more things, just to kind of give you guys a better concept of what we're looking to collect in this notebook. So the main purpose of using a shared notebook is so that we can have collaboration. So as you guys are reporting your different issues, bugs, or enhancements, we will come in and we will be reviewing those. We'll respond to each of them. We typically put our text in a different color. As we create cards for bugs, we'll identify the card numbers that we create, and we will respond to all of those there. It is live, so as other people are testing, if somebody else has the same issue, you can see that it's been reported. So you can note in there, like, I found the same issue, instead of having to spell everything out, just to help for that collaboration as everybody's going through testing. When you're logging your entries in the notebook, you should be documenting this information as you're completing UAT. So you should have the notebook up in a tab or a separate screen as you're walking through your testing. That way we can ensure that we're capturing everything that you can find. We don't really want you to wait all the way till the end of testing to do the notebook, because you could forget things. You're going to have to go back and get screenshots. So if you can do them in parallel, it's going to save you time and ensure that we have the most accurate information around any issues or bugs that you do find. In the notebook, we have an example issue reporting section that you guys can look at for like an example of how you would put an issue into the notebook. In the notebook, you're going to find a section labeled pre-screening, and then there are sub-pages in that section for every single page of the pre-screening, so that you can document the different issues or bugs or enhancements you identify for each individual page. This makes it easier for us to kind of follow along and know where to look to troubleshoot. Be concise but detailed. Whenever you guys are putting these into the notebook, what we have to do on our end is be able to understand what the issue is and replicate it on our end so that our developers and us can troubleshoot that to come up with a solution. We also ask that if you're putting in any kind of um, issue or bug or enhancement, that if you're asking for something to be changed or if something doesn't make sense, some kind of potential solution. So in the notebook, I'm going to jump over to that real quick. In our example issues reporting section, like an example issue is that when I select the LWIA from the dropdown, I don't see the LWIA number next to the name. So that is an issue. And then the potential solution is, I'm not sure that everybody's going to know the exact names of the LWIA. It would be good to also see the number. So not only what is the issue, but a potential way that it could be addressed so that we can look at fixing that, going down a path that's going to provide a solution that will be acceptable in the field. If multiple issues arise in one area, we want you to log each one separately. So if you find multiple things, you can have a log for each of the things that you do find. This helps us, again, to ensure that we are identifying each of the issues and creating cards, and that, 3 things don't get jumbled into like one sentence, and we have a hard time understanding that there are 3 separate issues. So the intention of this notebook is for you guys to be able to communicate to us things that you're finding, and then we are able to communicate back to you how we are addressing those things. And typically we'll review this and we have questions, so we'll know. In our example reporting thing, I put like Olivia Miller, put this on 11/1/2025. I was using Chrome. And then for pre-screening, we want you to put the customer you're using. So I was testing pre-screening under the customer Bob Builder. So now I know that I can go in and look at Bob Builder to see what you guys were seeing to troubleshoot that. And then here is the issue, and then a potential solution and why, and then a screenshot. So that's what we're looking for you guys whenever you're reporting things in the notebook. And then you'll see over here in pre-screening, we have a check-in page. So as you check in to testing, we ask that you come to this page first and you put the date you tested it. If you test across multiple days, just keep adding the days that you come into the system and you test. This helps us understand who is testing, even if you don't identify issues. So you might not put anything in any of these other pages, but we'll know you still completed testing because you were on this. Even if you do find issues, we ask that you check in here so we can have an easy way to see who is all engaging in testing. We have a section for our trainers, our core group, our extended group, and then as any additional testers come in, please feel free to add your names and your LWIAs here, and you can continue to add rows if we fill this up. And then over here, we have the pages of the pre-screening, which you'll see when we jump into it. So the pre-screening is like almost like a survey, and it has multiple pages that customers or intake staff will complete to check for potential eligibility. So as you're going through, if you find an issue on the skills screening page, you'll come to this tab and put it here. And then at the end, there's just other feedback for general feedback that might be applicable across all pages. You can put it here. If you have any issues accessing the OneNote or at all during UAT, you can contact us. We have our contact information here, so definitely feel free to reach out. The expectations for UAT is that you test these areas and you test them thoroughly. You make sure that you're able to navigate them, and that if you have any usability issues, you're noting those in the log, that you're detail oriented so that we can reproduce the issue. And then when we look at the feedback provided, it'll fall into 3 categories. It'll either be a bug that the system does not perform the way it is expected. It'll be an issue, meaning it performs as expected, but it is not going to meet the needs of the field. So we need to change how it is performing. Or an enhancement, meaning it is performing as expected, but could possibly be done a little better or much better. So you guys don't need to define those. We'll define that as we're going through things, and the feedback and which buckets they fall in. But that is typically the three categories they'll fall in when we're looking at that. We will address all bugs and issues and enhancements. We will have to determine if they're going to fit in the timeline for our July 1 go live, or if that is something that we'll have to look at doing in like version 2 or 3 of IWDS after we get the initial version out July 1. Best practices for effective UAT is to think like an end user as you're going through and testing this. Test it from the perspective of your intake staff and the customers. Be specific and thorough. The more specific you can be on your feedback, the better that we'll be able to address that. And if we're not following, we definitely will be contacting you and asking some questions to make sure that we're fully understanding the feedback provided, and then provide context. For instance, why an enhancement would improve the user experience or the system performance. So kind of talked about that in a little bit in the notebook. Not only should we just add the LWIA number to the name, but the reason is that some people might not know that. So we have a better understanding on why this change needs to happen. So we can say, hey, this is actually an issue versus just an enhancement, nice to have. These first couple pages just kind of provide an overview of UAT, and I want to pause right here because again, we have a lot of new folks on, and I want to see if anybody has any general questions on UAT, user acceptance testing as a whole, before we actually dig into the specific user acceptance testing we're doing today on pre-screening. Okay, and I'm keeping my eye on the chat and I don't see anything there, so I will keep going. So today we're going to be testing pre-screening. Um, Pre-screening is one of the first steps in the intake process for the WIOA Title I programs, including adult, youth, and dislocated worker. So those are the 3 programs we are pre-screening for. This is a high-level screening that helps determine potential eligibility before completing the full intake application. The pre-screening adapts based on customer information. So the pages and questions will adjust dynamically so that the customer is only seeing what's relevant to their situation. For example, someone outside the youth age range will not see the youth-related questions, and certain answers might trigger additional questions or skip questions. So if you and a colleague are going through the pre-screening, there is a very good chance you're not going to see the same questions, let alone the same pages, because it's going to update and adjust dynamically based on how you're answering those questions. The pre-screening can be completed in several convenient ways. So we have a staff-assisted pre-screen. An intake staff member can complete the pre-screening with the customer during an initial interaction. We also have a staff-initiated link. So an intake staff member can send a secure link to the customer, allowing them to complete the pre-screening remotely. Or the customer can access a public web page to request a secure link and complete the pre-screening independently. So this is without having any interaction with a local office. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we look at a flow chart here in just a moment. The reason we do this is to provide flexibility to ensure that customers can begin the intake process in a way that is convenient for their needs, while also giving the career planners and intake staff the tools needed to help facilitate that, as well as view the pre-screenings in the event a customer comes in and needs assistance with completing that pre-screening. And then a couple of notes here is that only one pre-screening can be opened at a time. So as you guys are going through and testing a customer, if you set up a customer and start a pre-screening, you have to use that pre-screening for the customer, or if you want to start another one under that customer, there's a way you can delete out the initial pre-screening to start a new one, but they can only have one pre-screening record open at a time. And then we have a couple of updates identified for pre-screening that we are aware of that we wanted to note to you guys. I'm going to talk about these a little bit when I actually get into the tool so I can show you, but we have them listed here on the guide so you guys can easily refer back to this as you're doing your testing. So I want to show a quick Miro board here really quick to just kind of provide a visual of where we're at in the process. And for our core group, I am continuing to build this out past intake. But for right now, I have most of the intake portions built out. So today we are testing the pre-screening. So it's pretty early on in the flow. As you can see, it's one of the second steps. And there are two ways we can get to this pre-screening. So we're going to have a self-service entry point. We're currently working on building out a public website that will house a form, a very short form that somebody could fill out with like first name, last name, email, and zip code. And by filling that out, they're going to get an email with that secure link that will take them directly in to do the pre-screening so that the customer can complete it on their own. And this path, if they don't have an IWDS 2.0 profile created, that is totally fine. We'll do that pre-screening, and later on in the process, the system will provide a route to merge them in and create an IWDS profile so that the career planners and intake staff, depending on the roles and the local office, have the ability to get into that customer and do eligibility certification and all the fun things that come after application. We also have the route through the IWDS 2.0 customer profile. So a customer could already be in the system because they came in for self or information only services, or maybe they already went through the program a couple years ago and they have a profile. They can still complete it through the self-service entry route. It will just tie to their existing profile. And then if they also visit a local office, this provides a space that allows career planners or intake staff to initiate that with the customer. So they can go in and send that link to the customer, or maybe it's a customer who prefers to have some guided support through that. They don't want to do it on their own. The career planner or intake staff member can open that up and walk through the pre-screening with the customer. And we'll see that a little bit more when we go in and look at the actual pre-screening. So this is where we're at in the process. And I did want to note we have these little stars. The key to the star is that we want to provide a find local help like widget that's going to be available in several spaces where we have customer facing activities, so that at any point in time, if the customer gets stuck or confused, they can click on that to find the local office near them to connect with to get support so that they don't get stuck in the pre-screening and aren't able to move forward. So we have those off ramps is what we've been calling them. We'll have them on the public website. We'll have them embedded in the pre-screening and application. We are still working on building out this feature. So it's a coming soon feature that will be incorporated across the tool where necessary. So there's a couple of different ways that we can access the pre-screening. We can access it through the self-service pre-screening portal. We are still building the public-facing page that will support that pre-screening. For now, we have a test page set up that has the short form that you can get that secure link from. So we have instructions on how you can navigate there and complete the self-service pre-screening. I also noted that we're working to extend this to send a text message. Right now, we have it hooked up with email, but we do have some other work happening to continue to extend that so folks can get a text with a link to complete the pre-screening that way. And there's a couple important notes that I wanted to call out on the self-service pre-screening. So whenever you are completing the short form, you have to include your email. If you use your real email, we have this already set up, so it will send you an email at the real email you use with a link to complete that pre-screening. You can go back to that link at any time to re-get back into that pre-screening. It's going to save your work as you go. If you add at fakemail.com to the end of an email, like you could use test1276 at fakemail.com, this will bypass the fact that you have to get an email and click the link, and it will take you directly into the pre-screening. So if you want to go directly into the pre-screening from the self-service form, you need to put at fakemail.com at the end of an email you use, and it will take you directly in. Emails are required to be unique. So if you use test@fakemail.com, you're probably going to get an error message that says, hey, this is a duplicate because that already exists. So you need to use some kind of unique front part of the email and then at fakemail.com so that you can get in without getting that red error message that says this email is already in use with the pre-screening. To re-access your pre-screening, if you use your real email, you can go back to that and use that same link to get back into it. And then there's also a table that I will show you that has all the pre-screenings listed in this same space where the short form is, that you can find your pre-screening and get back into it that way if you use the at fakemail.com. So this guide is going to provide you two ways to get to the self-service pre-screening. There is a direct link to the page, and then you're just going to open up the application pre-screening section at the top, or you're going to navigate via the menu. And I put the steps here on how you can navigate to that and get to it. So I'm going to actually show you these screens before we look at the other path to getting into the pre-screening. So if we come to our testing page, so that the guide has all these steps, management tools, testing page, then we're going to open up this application pre-screen section. These fields right here are eventually going to be embedded onto a public page that allows somebody to come in and put in their information. And I will note, if you're wanting to test somebody as a youth, you got to make sure that you put in a date of birth that would trigger either an in-school or out-of-school youth. And then you click test, and that will take you into the pre-screening. Since I used that fake mail, it took me directly in here versus if I used my real email, I would have stayed on that testing page and I would have had to have navigated to my email and clicked the link to get into it. Right under this, you'll see we have this table. So right here is the record I just created. And I can click this copy customer link icon. And then if I paste that back in, it takes me right back into my pre-screening. So you guys can re-access those if you're not able to finish it all at once. You can easily re-access that by coming back to this table. Some of them have a play icon. That means that they have an IWDS 2.0 profile associated, and it will take you through the profile route versus a secure link that would be provided to a customer. Yes, so the flow chart, I will send out this flow chart, I will send out a link to it so you guys can get into it and scroll in and out just like I am, so that you guys have the ability to better see what you're doing. And I'll even highlight this one a little bit so it's very clear. This is the part that we are testing. Yeah, so and we'll give you this direct link so you can magnify it or zoom out and move around it as much as you need. I see Sarah's comment. Yeah, this will be part of the resources that we send out to you to facilitate your UAT homework. Does anybody have any other questions before I jump into the next route to receive to access the pre-screening?
Oh,
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't know if I was unmuted. Can I ask you a quick question, or I can wait till the end? When you on the page the screen you were just at, Olivia, where you said once you entered information, you said, "See if I didn't finish it, I can go back and find myself."
Mm-hmm.
And is there a way? And I guess maybe the customer wouldn't need this necessarily because they're not looking for other customers. But if someone said like, "Oh, hey, I started filling my thing out," can I talk to someone at your office? If we wanted to, is there? I see it's nice we can do the first name or last name, the sorting. But is there a way is there a search, or if we started typing in the last name
Yeah.
in that screen, would we, or is that just in like what we've been doing before?
We're building a better process for that. So right now, this is more of just a giant list of all of them, but
Mhm.
we are actually, Laura is
Oh, I
working
see.
on
Okay.
this. We're building a process so that if somebody comes in, we're going to provide a career planner the way. So if they come in and they're already a customer, it will like auto link to their profile and you'll just be able to get to it that way, which is
Oh,
what I'm going to
great.
show you next. But
Okay.
if they are a self-service, like a pre-record, they don't have a profile yet, they're Laura's building
Nice.
a way where you'll see those
Nice.
customers
The tab, cool. Okay.
and it will require that we first dedupe them. Let's make sure they're not already a customer and just came in like with another email and like a different, a married name versus a maiden name. And if they are an existing customer, then we can merge that record into their account. And if they're not, we'll have the ability to just create a whole new IWDS profile for them so that the career planner can get in and view that pre-screening that way and help them move forward.
Okay.
So we are working on that process.
No, that's great because that was the second, you actually answered the second part of my question was once somebody at least like, puts their first name, last name, phone number and that very first, screen, that's what I was going to say. Like, could they then automatically in the system, will they be saved as a quote unquote customer? And then I was thinking, oh, we could just go to the customer search and do it that way. But it's not, it sounds like you're going to have that other tab for pre-record. So that'd be great. Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you so
so
much.
just because a customer comes in from the self-service route, we won't automatically create an IWDS profile for them. We'll create a pre-record unless it's an exact match with
Oh, like if
email
they've been
and
in the
date of birth.
system before, if their information has been in there before, then they might have an existing customer and
Yes. And if that's the case, we'll link them to the existing IWDS profile. But we want to minimize duplicates getting entered into the system. So we create a pre-record and we'll have a human verify that we're not creating a bunch of duplicates
oh, that
before
makes
they
sense.
become a 2.0 profile.
Oh, got it. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, I'll let you get back to it.
Yeah, and so whenever you're creating a pre-screen like for a customer, it is totally up to you if you want to use your real email or your fake email. If you would prefer to get the email and test it that route, you can definitely use your real email when you're creating this. Fake mail works just as well too. Um, when we talk about account creation to create your IWDS2 profile to get into IWDS, you will use your real email, and we'll talk about that here in just a bit after we go through this pre-screening. So the next route that we can access the pre-screening is through an IWDS customer profile. And I did want to note that we are currently working on some user interface updates in the customer profile for how we'll display these records. So we are not really looking for feedback on that because we are changing it pretty significantly, and that will go through UAT when the user interface is updated. Once you have a pre-screening started, you cannot create a new one. So I mentioned that earlier, only one pre-screening record can exist at a time. And once you have one started, the intake summary section will update under the pre-screening area to show the active record in a table. So then you can re-access it through that table by clicking the play icon. So again, we have the steps here on how you navigate if you want to go through the customer profile. We have those steps right here. Um, I'm going to show you through an existing customer, but we also give you steps on how to create a whole new customer. We have created some personas that we're going to provide you guys. Um, they're personas of customers that you can use for testing purposes, so you don't have to make up a whole bunch of fake data. We've created personas for all dislocated worker tracks, so our displaced homemaker, substantial layoffs, all that stuff. We have personas for in-school and out-of-school youth, and personas for customers who would only trigger under adult. So we're going to provide those to you for examples of how you can test. Um, However, the names in the system, like there's 15 of them. So if you get Victor Hayes, I think is one, there could be somebody already using Victor Hayes with a pre-screening, and only one pre-screening can be opened at a time. So there's a good chance you might need to just change Victor Hayes's name and create a whole new customer and just add a fresh customer and then test pre-screening under them. So we gave you steps on how to do that. And then once the customer is created, you'll land on their customer profile, and then you can start the intake process with them. And you can choose to send a link to the customer to complete on their own. You're going to want to use the complete now with customer link to get directly into that. And it's going to take you right to the pre-screening for that customer. And then you can start going through the pages. Um, Once you have that created, now that I come back to the customer profile, I now have this customer record. So if I need to get back into it, I can click this play icon and it will take me right back to that pre-screening record. If I try to create another intake, it's going to give me a message that says I already have one completed. Like I said, we're cleaning up this UI so that this button is not even going to be here if we already have one, and we're going to make a more actionable UI that makes it clear that there's a pre-screening open and action is needed to complete that and move them forward. So we're changing all of this right here is going to change pretty significantly now that we have the pre-screening put together and understand the flow through the first couple intake steps. So the next part I want to look at is, so again, the guide has all the instructions on how you'll click through to do that. Um, Once you go through the pre-screening, you're going to get to the next steps page. Let me open that back up. Once you get through all these pages and you get to next steps, this is where you're going to stop. It will allow you to move forward with starting the application. Application just went into development like a sprint or two ago and still has a lot of work that needs to go into it. So it is not ready for UAT. If you go through and look at it, we're still working on building things out and tweaking questions and business logic in there, and still have several pages we have to build. So once you get to the next step portion, you can stop. You should not go forward with doing the application. There's nothing wrong with you guys seeing it. It's just not at a space to provide feedback because it is still changing so significantly. And then before I get into the actual pre-screening, I wanted to set up some context for you all about completing the pre-screening. So we have personas. We've created personas to help staff test this. They're customized to hit the different eligibility types. And I did put in here, please note that you may need to change the name for these customers as we're going to have several different testers. We have like 75 people on the call right now, and we have 15 different personas built out. So not everybody can use Victor Hayes because can only have one pre-screening open. Each of the personas include general customer information like their age, employment status, education level, and other relevant details. And each of them are designed to reflect the various program eligibility pathways. And it is a very comprehensive data set for some intake. Not all of the data in there will be applicable to the pre-screening. So for example, adult and dislocated workers, we are not asking about income information at time of pre-screening. That is something we're going to get into in the application as we move forward. Pre-screening is really focused on a high-level check to see if they're even eligible or potentially eligible before we start getting significant information and documents from them in the application. So there is a lot of data in the pre-screening and not all, or I'm sorry, in the persona, and not all of it will be used in the pre-screening. We are going to continue to use these personas as we move through the entire intake process. So that information will be relevant once we open up application, and now you can use this persona to move through pre-screened and application. So I did want to note that we had a couple people concerned when we did a usability study towards the middle end of November that, hey, I didn't use all the data in my pre-screening or in my persona. Did I do something wrong? And the answer is no. These personas are being built to help facilitate the entire intake process as we work to build that out. And then just want to note again that the pre-screening is dynamic. So you will not, if you go through the pre-screening 5 times, you could see it differently each time because you might see some questions if you're a youth versus other questions based on your dislocated worker track. We have an additional page at the end of pre-screening if you come in through the self-service route, so we can collect additional data to create a customer profile that we're not showing if you come in through the profile route because we already have that because you already have a profile. So again, it's dynamic based on the situation. So we're minimizing the unnecessary data we need to get from the customer and focusing on what's really important to determine potential eligibility. And then in this, we have the link to the personas. So if you open this persona document, we have them all listed here, and then you can go through and pick one that you want to use. I recommend not everybody pick Victor just because he's at the top. We have them all um, in different eligibility tracks, so you can scroll through and pick whichever. But we have this information and it's set up to try to help flow through the pre-screening based on the information we put in the order we put it in. So you can use that to help you as you are adding a customer. If you're adding them, you're going to want to make sure that you're using the date of birth and stuff that we put, especially when we start looking at like our youth customers. We have the ages in there that it's going to allow them to trigger on some of those youth areas. And in addition to the personas, you can also use your own examples if you have, your own customers that you want to go through and test. Just make sure you're changing up that PII. And then just some general navigation information. We have a side panel that shows the pages. It's going to show you where you're at and allow you to use the panel to navigate as well as the buttons at the bottom. Um, Again, just noting those responsive questions. So questions are going to show as you answer, you're going to see more questions show up based on how you've answered. And then another thing that I want to take a little bit of time to make sure we all understand is the customer-centered design aspect that went into the pre-screening. It uses a customer-centered and asset-based language at a 5th to 6th grade reading level to ensure clarity and accessibility for all of our users. So customers are able to come in and do this on their own. So we need to be able to write the pre-screening in a way that is accessible to all the users that we're serving. The customer center focuses on the clarity, respect, and ease of understanding the questions and the information we are trying to provide to the customer as we're gathering data. And asset-based is we're working on highlighting their strengths and opportunities rather than focusing on their deficits. So the way we've worded a lot of the pre-screening and the way that we have focused on only asking relevant information around eligibility checks gets at that customer-centered and asset-based design. And that is really at the heart of the entire IWDS 2.0 system. This is a customer-first system focused on service delivery, while knowing that we still need to provide other reporting aspects of this, but it's customer first. I don't know, Sarah, I'm going to pause right here. I don't know, Sarah, if you want to add anything else to this customer center design and setting that stage for any of the users.
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. I think that was a good overview. From what we need from you all is really having the mindset of, is the system and the questions and the verbiage customer centered? Does it promote them, getting the services they need and really allowing them to travel through the system into services and successful, exit and hopefully employment well. So the definition of customer-centered design will be finalized through the trainer, IWDS 2.0 trainer calls and throughout the next, 6 to 8 months. But at the core of it, we just want to make sure that we are being clear and efficient and respectful of everyone's journey.
Thanks, Sarah. And the spirit of customer-centered design and focusing on really, an eligibility check is the pre-screening. There are a lot of questions that especially some of our career planners on the call who are used to doing intake and stuff. When you think of the traditional IWDS 2.0, or I'm sorry, IWDS application, there is a lot of questions being gathered there. And what we've really focused on as part of this transition for intake is a lot of the questions in the IWDS application not only get at eligibility and priority, but there are some federal reporting data points that it's working to collect as well that have nothing to do with eligibility or priority of service needing to get them, enrolled and certified. So we have moved a lot of those questions to later in the process so that before we're even going into all that information, we're making sure that we can provide them service, that they're eligible, and we're able to get them in to start serving them as we're getting that data. So I wanted to note that is there's a pretty significant shift from how we currently do intake to how we're moving to do intake. Right now, we're just looking at pre-screening, but we will be getting into application as well. And it's going to hold true through pre-screening and application that we're really focused on getting to know the customer, not only tell us all these things that are happening that might be causing issues for you, but tell us where you're wanting to go and how you're wanting supported. And that's going to set us up for success as we're working to assess them and build out a career plan to fully support them in their entire journey. So with that, I want to jump in and actually take a look at the pre-screening, and then we will take a look at login stuff after this. So let me copy this. So you're going to look at the introduction page. You'll notice we have like this yellow to-do box. This is the Find Local Help widget that we're building as like an off-ramp for them. So that's coming soon. You can read through this text, provide feedback on that. And then we're going to start getting into the heart of the pre-screening. So we start with the Getting to Know You Better page. And we're learning kind of about their goals. And then we have some other questions here. One of the things I wanted to point out is that if you pick, I have a clear goal and know the occupation I want, you get a sub question to help pick the occupation. We are completely redoing this modal. We are going to get rid of all of the ONET and code references. Those mean nothing to our customer. We also want to make this UI a little cleaner, use less space up here so we can see more of this. So this modal is being completely redone. You do not need to provide feedback on this, as it is going to be scrapped and a much more customer friendly modal is going to be put in place of it. This is an optional question down here. And then if you pick this like second item here, I have a general field in mind. It's giving you a drop-down list of all the potential fields that were pulled in from the ONET that they could select. And then these other questions down here, they don't have anything. So that's kind of an example of the dynamic question set. Based on how you answer this question, you may get another sub question. And then I also noted in the document that these emojis are going to be replaced with icons. So it's going to have a cleaner look and feel. We're going to use more of these thin line colored icons in this section. So these emojis will be replaced. And these are kind of various situations that we can get to better know the customer and where they're at with some of these. So they can pick information on their work experience, their health needs, maybe they don't have any. We've updated this to have some of those. We want you guys to take a close look at these lists and make sure that these are going to make sense from a customer perspective as they're coming through here and as an intake staff, that they are comprehensive, and we have what we need. We've had a little bit of feedback on work experience, wanting to understand if this is the right list. So we would love to get some feedback from you guys on all of these. But there was some work experience and legal needs questions that we had specifically that we want to get feedback from locals before we do any kind of tweaking, because you guys are the closest to the customers and might have some really good insight before we make any changes to the wording or list options here. As we continue to move through this getting to know you better page, we then move on to our skill screening. So this is the basic skills deficiency tool. And we have tweaked it a little bit. We've tweaked some of the questions, and then we have these answer options here. So as they answer these, the next question will show up. These are all mapped to help determine eligibility. So as I engage with these, this one is going to flag the customer if they're a youth. Well, it'll flag the customer as basic skills deficient. And on the back end, it'll pass that through when looking at eligibility. I'll show that here in just a moment when we get to the youth questions. Then we're moving into general eligibility. So we're looking at sex assigned at birth. If we pick male and we're a US citizen, we meet that criteria, then it's going to ask about selective service. Selective service is a requirement, but for pre-screening, it's not one of the things that's going to weed you out. So if you say no, you're not going to be determined potentially ineligible. This is a kind of a complex thing. So we are always passing that forward to the career planner during eligibility certification to verify and make that final decision, because there's a lot of ways that a career planner can assist with selective service, whether that be helping them to get registered or helping them to get a waiver so that they can meet eligibility. But if we were to say no to a US citizen, then I'll ask, can you legally work in the United States? If we say no, this is where you see we lost several of those pages because we're not triggering for potentially eligible at this point. And then age, if you're too young to participate in a program, that's another area where we're not going to allow you to move forward. In most every other case, the customer is going to be able to move forward at least under the adult program. So as we continue to move forward, we're now looking at the youth. So this customer is within the youth age. So are they in school, out of school? And then it is looking to check for eligibility under youth. So we have some questions here. And then we move forward. This question set is very dynamic. So if I were to say no, I'm getting the out of school youth questions. So as you go through this, it could be different every time based on how you're answering these questions. Once I meet eligibility for youth, I am then moving forward. If I wasn't youth, I would have seen those dislocated worker questions. If I would not have met eligibility for a youth, then it would have checked for dislocated worker. And then this final question is looking to set up my customer profile. So I came the self-service route. So there's a couple other things we need to know to create that customer profile. So it'll collect those there, and then it's giving me a review page to review all the information I entered. I can easily go back and edit if I notice something's wrong. Then we'll agree to the terms, and then I'll get the final page. So this page will look different depending if I'm coming in it from the self-service route as a customer. If I come through it through the profile as more of an intake staff member assisting with it, there's extra guidance for career planner that's going to be shown. And then we also show the career planners which program tracks they trigger eligibility for. So for this customer, it would have shown adult and youth were the potential tracks. We don't show that to the customers at this point in time because that is not going to mean a lot to them this early in the process. As they move through finishing the application, we then start opening up orientation videos and explaining more of WIO and the programs there. If they check one of the boxes in the legal needs question, for example, will that bring up a sub question or drop box of questions? Not in not in pre-screening, but it will pass questions through for application and through the getting started assessment. So we will flag if they pick one of these and flag that they have a legal need, we'll flag for potentially justice impacted and dig into that more in application and the getting started assessment. We're looking at it
Okay, that's what I
now
was
more
wondering is
for
that'll
just
be like the
eligibility.
testing last time.
Right.
What was
The
that,
last
Rory?
thing, sorry, did somebody say something?
Yeah, I was just asking Rory to repeat his question because I didn't quite catch it.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that's for those of us who've been on the group prior. That okay, that's kind of also what I meant too, but I didn't type it very clearly in my question. Sorry, Olivia. But thank you for clarifying. Yeah, I would so these are the things they would check on those pre-screening open-ended questions, assessment questions that we've been kind of doing, we've been testing and going through and doing the polls on the last couple of weeks. So
Yes.
that's okay. So this is then when if it's checked here, that's what prompts those other questions that'll come up. Um, okay, I'm seeing how it all ties together now. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So for other people, we have been with our core discovery group, we've been digging into the getting started assessment, which Roy is talking about, and that we've been looking at sub questions that we would ask that expands on this to better understand what their needs are so that we can build a career plan and provide the right services. So this question helps feed through to that getting started assessment, and we'll have more questions there. Yes, they can qualify for all titles for the career planners. Let me see, can I? So for a career planner, they can choose that they wanna qualify them for all titles. Just because the system doesn't recommend one, doesn't mean that the career planner can't make that determination and move them through the application for all programs and enroll them in all programs. Many people don't have their S selective service card or birth certificate. Are there questions pertinent? So, part of what we're building is a preparation packet. We're working with the DCO team to build a packet that they will get at the end of pre-screening that lays out the kinds of documentations they're going to need to provide as part of the application and eligibility certification process. The application will actually allow customers to upload documentation on their own. If they don't have it, totally fine. They can work with the career planner to do that during eligibility certification. But we are giving them that information. We also want to expand that packet to say, like, hey, if you don't have this, here's some steps you can take in the meantime to get it. A career planner can like help them with that too. But we also want to give them the power to start some of that on their own if like they lost their driver's license or birth certificate or whatever. Perfect. So once you get to this page, it might be different depending on if you come from the profile. It's kind of giving you the role of a career planner as we still are working on user roles, but you get some additional information here if you're coming through it through the profile versus if you come through it through the self-service, you're seeing more of what the customer would see. This is where you'll stop. If you click start application, it will take you there because we are working on building that. There's not very much in it now, but we're again going to continue through that, and that'll be at UAT at a future session. Um, as you go through, these are the pages. So as you're looking at the notebook, we have the pages here. So as you find things, if you can try to put them on the right page of the notebook, it just helps us. Sometimes the comments made without context to the page are a little hard to troubleshoot. So this just kind of helps us better understand where you're at so we can take a closer look. Paul, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, yeah, I had just a couple questions. One is in the beginning when you start the pre-screening, you have the customer with a specific age, right? So if it's an age of a youth, it's going to take you through the pre-screening for the youth, right?
Right.
So, but if you know already that, let's say they're 18 years old and you're going to co-enroll them in adult and youth, does it matter at that point? Is there a way to do the pre-screening for both?
It does adult for everybody. This is essentially the adult page.
Okay. Okay.
So
So
this,
ask all the questions for the adult and
yep,
youth for the pre-screening then?
if they're in the youth age, yes. If they're not in the youth age, it asks all the questions for the adult and dislocated worker.
Okay. Okay.
If they're in the youth age, we will pre-screen for adult and then youth, and say they don't hit youth, they don't meet youth, then they are also pre-screened for dislocated worker.
Okay. Perfect. Um, and then the other thing is the questions on the uh, basic skills questions. I noticed, unless I missed it, the question about the high school diploma or HSEs, I didn't see that question.
We are going to capture that in the application education piece to help with that eligibility.
Okay, so not here, but in the other. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Yep. And there were a couple questions in the chat about pre-screening. I did answer that. So everyone will have to do pre-screening at this time. Lisa, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if that's going to be in the future, maybe changed. The only reason I'm asking is because sometimes individuals, we know that, that they're going to be eligible, and having them to have to go through all of those pieces is just more added data entry when we could just be doing the application. If that makes sense.
It does, but all of this information passes through and will pre-populate the application. So it will not be duplicate data entry.
Okay. Okay.
Technically, behind the scenes, the application and pre-screening are like the same record. Um,
Okay.
we're just trying to preface it in a way that we're getting the minimal information first and making that check. So if they're not eligible, they're not having to do the entire application and then getting the like, sorry, we can't help you message.
Okay. So
But
it's
it will
okay.
all
I see.
pass through. Yeah, I don't know. I might be able to give you a little preview, but like nothing will be re-entered. It is simply asking that they confirm information that we already know to be true. So all this will pass through if we know it. The private information section is where it really comes into play. Like all this page is essentially filled out and they're really just verifying, and then we'll get documentation on that if they have it. If not, then it'll be gotten by the career planner at eligibility cert.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just add, we want your feedback, but also the goal of having everyone go through the pre-screening and asking the questions about potential barriers, even though a participant or a potential participant may have an idea of what they want to do, they may not realize that they could get supports for some barriers that are present. So we're really trying to make sure that we are meeting them where they're at with this pre-screening. And to Olivia's point, everything will be um, automated so that they won't have to like continue filling out the same information.
Are there any other questions on the pre-screening before I turn it over to Lynette to talk about user access? All right. Lynette, do you want me to share my screen and we can talk through it, or do you want to share your screen?
If you wouldn't mind sharing, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah. So let me sign out here.
I just put a link to the how to log in guide in the chat as well. So if anyone needs it.
All right. Lynette, you want me to talk through it and then the link in the chat is there if they need it?
Yes, and yeah, we can do that, and I can fill in as you need. So when you
Perfect.
come to the link, you're going to get to that sign up screen, and then I'll have Olivia click on it and you can show the fields. Um, you need email, first, last name, your state and your city. And then at the bottom, it's going to ask you to create um, a password. And then you click on sign up. So your username is going to be I recommend using the same email that you used for your work email. Um, and then a password.
And these are optional here, just so everybody knows. What didn't I meet? So once you complete that form, you're gonna have to set up the security method for your authenticator. And there's a variety of ways that you can do that. Lynette, what was the preferred route for them to do this? Was it?
We recommend phone. It'll text a code to your phone that you put in, similar to like how you use your bank and all that other stuff. If you don't want to use that, you can set up use security questions. Once you set that up, it'll bring you back to this list, and then you can just hit continue once you've set up one method. And folks, if you've tested with us before, you don't need to do this part.
Me. If you guys want to work on getting logged in, we can provide support. You can connect with Lynette if you have any issues getting logged in. Her email is listed in the UAT guide that we're sending out.
Yep.
Al, do we have anything else on the agenda today?
No.
Okay. So then we can also use some time here if if anybody wants to try logging in.
And Olivia, now I don't know if you saw Rory's question in the chat. I know it's something that we've talked about on the state calls when a person's returning for services, but I couldn't remember if we had made a final decision on how they would interact with the screens again.
Yeah, so we are working on finalizing the time frame. So a pre-screening record, you will see it has expires on. Right now we have it set to 30 days. That is not the final date. We are working with the state to finalize the timeline of how long an inactive pre-screening record would stay open. We do not want, because these will have the ability for self-service, we don't want, thousands of records sitting there incomplete for, long periods of time. So our conversation right now, we're thinking at least a minimum 90 days, might make that longer. The pre-screening would stay open. So if the customer already did it and they came back, they wouldn't have to do it again unless it expired, then it would have to be redone. If they move through the pre-screening into the application, we want to keep that incomplete application record open even longer. But again, not for forever. We don't want a bunch of incomplete applications in the system Once an application is fully complete and submitted, then it will forever live in the system. Even if it gets closed, it would still stay in there in the system. They would not have to redo it as long as it had not expired.
Rory, did that answer your question?
Yeah, it was similar to I think when Lisa had asked about, do they have to do it for everyone, and then and then I was thinking, oh yeah, like if they're already, like if they got through part of the process, in like what in the current IWDS, their status would be like incorrent, and they could be, archived in there for a long time. Um, and so like, yeah, that was, I just was thinking like, well, you probably could just, if you find, like, if they're still archived in the customer search, like if they got through part of the application or just, maybe didn't follow through, ended up not needing services at that time, they come back a little bit later. Maybe they got a temp job and now they're going to come back 3, 6 months later or something. If they're still in the customer search list, meaning they got through enough that the pre-screening completely and they got through some screens of their application, then we could just pull them up. If they're in the customer search, we can just pull them up and then kind of take it from there, like start a new application or complete it from there. They
Yep.
wouldn't necessarily do the pre-screening again. But I see what you're saying now. That's because I remembered this screen, but now that you're back to it, but I was like, oh wait, was that an expiration date or the date it was entered on? I wasn't paying enough attention to the column headers there. So now I see the expires on, and which makes sense because then you're storing tons and tons and tons of names and somewhat personal information for forever, and that's just
Mhm.
taking up data and memory in your system. So that makes sense. Thank you very much.
But we are still, as Olivia pointed out, trying to decide on those dates. So as you're reviewing this, if you all could keep in mind, like customers I've seen come back in so many days and try to redo or restart a pre-screening or application. That would be really helpful. We're trying to balance having them easily come back into the system and then also not wanting to overlook any barriers that could have popped up in their life since that they initially went through that pre-screening. So we're accurately getting them the services that they need. And then Robert, I believe we're still figuring out the timing on when applications will be removed. And then are you talking about incomplete applications? Olivia, I think we're still deciding on incomplete applications.
Yeah, I was
After the
mid
period of time.
typing.
Yep.
Yep, incomplete applications will potentially be removed after a period of time. We're looking more at like 6 months to a year. There's some do it things we're looking at though, because we're allowing customers to upload documentation. So need to understand the security around having those links where customers can upload documents and how long those can stay open. But that's only for inactive applications. Once an application is fully completed and submitted, we will not remove those from the systems. They may get closed, but they'll forever be like historied and archived with the customer profile.
And then Felicia, we are, I'll let Olivia talk on this, but having these screens be user-friendly for mobile phone users has been a priority from us as well. Olivia or Al, if you wanted to speak on that for a moment.
Yeah, we have some extra development work going in to the pre-screening to make them, they are mobile accessible, but we are making them mobile friendly, meaning they're going to look a lot cleaner and we're going to redo the UI when it opens on a phone. Um, so it looks and you can engage with it better on the phone. That is still in development, if I remember correctly, Lynette. I know we were working together on that. So if you should test the pre-screen now on a computer or desktop or laptop.
Correct.
But they will work on a phone. Yes. So when we go live in IWDS 2.0, we will have a customer facing website where they would be directed to go and complete a short form to get that pre-screening link and start the pre-screening that way. Or you could create them, if they're a customer record, you could send it to them. But if they're just new customers that you're like marketing and outreaching to, you would be using the new job seeker site where they can complete like essentially this short form and do the pre-screening through IWDS. And then like your staff would all have access to be able to like help manage those and continue to move them through the application process. And that was in response to David's question in the chat. Any other questions? It looks like Lynette is working on approving access. So any other access issues or things, definitely let us know. If there's no other questions, we will let you guys go for the day. Our team is going to stay on for a while in case anybody has any access or needs help getting into IWDS 2.0, the UAT environment. The last thing I would like to say is please reach out to us. If you run into any issues, you can't get logged in, send us an email right away. We are always heartbroken to hear when we're reviewing UAT feedback that, oh, I wasn't able to participate because I couldn't get past page 1 or I couldn't get logged in. Those kinds of things you should be reaching out to us so that you can participate. We have lots of great folks here on staff that are able to hop on a call with you and get you past whatever roadblock you may run into so that you can fully participate in this process by December 16th so that we have your insight. You guys, as the various roles you all play, are the people we want looking at the system and telling us if this is going to work in the field, because come July 1, this will be what is implemented and used in the field. So now is the time we need your insight so that we can make sure we have the best possible version of our intake process ready to go for go live. With that, I'll see if there are any final questions before I let folks jump off. All right, folks can jump off then if you don't need any assistance with account stuff. Lucas, I see, yeah, Lynette answered your question. You can choose anyone. If you're not with a traditional LWIA, you can pick 00, or you can, if you're with multiple LWIAs for some of our trainers, you can just, pick one of the ones you're in.